Hi beauty friends, I'm Meredith Roddy from Beadalon and Artistic Wire, and this is the You Are My Sunshine Crystal Suncatcher class for Jessie James Beads. For the You Are My Sunshine Crystal Suncatcher project, you're going to need the following materials. First, you'll need a .006 diameter Frost Wildfire. You'll need your needle variety pack. This variety pack has two sizes of hard needles, a collapsible eye needle and a big eye needle. I'll be using the hard needle for this project, but you can use any of the 4 needles that you're most comfortable using. We'll also have 4 colors of seed beads, a crystal, blue, yellow, and purple mix. You'll also need about 6 inches of 18 gauge copper wire in a color of your choosing. You could use a scrap that you have in your studio, or you can figure out a different way to finish off your project, and we can talk a little bit more about that at the end. A couple of other things that will be really helpful for you to have for this project are a couple of pairs of pliers, a scissors, and I like to mark my beads that I'm working with letter beads. You can also use a Post-it or a scrap piece of paper, but I find it's easier, and I've written the instructions with the different letters, so it will help you to follow along. This project is worked from the bottom up. So the first round is actually down here at the bottom of the ornament, and then each successive round goes back up to the top, and we finish, our last round is right up here. So when I pour my beads out, I'm going to be pouring out my color A, which are going to be my crystal, size 11, Toho seed beads. And then my A beads are going to be the beads on this section right here. My B beads are going to be this flower. My C beads and another color of your choosing will be the beads as they're going up toward the top of your crystal pendant. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my sample aside and pour out my A beads and my B beads to get started. So again, my A beads are those crystal beads, and those beads are going to be my netting. So you can feel free to choose a different color for your netting, these longer parts that are in between each of the flowers. But for the pattern that I wrote, A is the color of the crystal beads that I chose for my pattern. The next color that I am going to choose are going to be my B beads, and that is this color right here. So like I said, the pattern is worked from the bottom to the top. So just keep that in mind as you're building it and as you're using the pendant as your frame. These are the colors that I'm going to be talking about first. Those are the B beads. So I will, to be consistent, I'm going to pour out some blue beads. And these are really pretty mixes that Jessie James Beads put together. And I'm going to choose the solid color here. And I'm not going to worry about my C or my D beads quite yet because I'm just doing these first rounds, and you can see I only need the crystal and the blue beads until I get to those first flowers. So Wildfire .006 in Frost is what is in the kit and what we're calling for in the project. But to make it a little bit easier to see what I'm doing, I'm actually going to switch out and use a black color because it will be a lot easier to see the thread paths if I'm using black rather than Frost. So I'm going to pull out about 5 feet, or a length that I'm comfortable with. And I'm going to use my very, very sharp scissors, and I'm going to cut all the way in the back of those scissors to get a nice sharp cut. In order to thread my needle, I'm going to use my chain nose pliers and flatten out the end of that Wildfire, and that makes it a lot easier to thread through my needle. I like to bead with a hard beading needle, but if a collapsible eye needle or a big eye beading needle is better for you, please feel free to use one of those. And to thread my needle, all I did was pinch that little end between my thumb and my forefinger and use the needle to guide on to my thread. Now I am ready to get started. I generally don't work with a stop bead, but if you're more comfortable using a stop bead, let me show you really quickly how to do that. I'm just going to pick up a bead. Actually, I'm going to pick up an alternative color bead so I don't get it confused with my design. And I'm going to pick up that bead, pull it within about 6 inches of the end, and then thread through it one more time. And this is a stop bead. It will prevent the beads that you're working on from sliding off your thread as you're working with it. The first step is round 1. And for round 1, what you're going to do is pick up 24 of those A beads. So let's count out 24 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And let's count 12 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's always good to double check that count. And you can see that having a thread going through those clear beads really changes the look of the project. So consider using a different color of thread through these clear beads if you want to have a really kind of a cool, funky, different look to your project. So you want to count out and make sure that you have 24 beads. And I'm going to tie these beads in a circle. And the way I'm going to do that is by going back through those beads one more time. So I want to make sure that I don't skip any beads. And I go back through those beads one full time. And once I get back around to the beginning, I want to make sure that I'm not capturing that stop bead. That stop bead is only there just to make sure that my beads don't slip off as I'm threading them on. And I want to go past that stop bead and then pass through maybe 2, maybe 3 more beads. And then my circle is complete. I'm not going to worry about this tail quite yet. In a little while, I'm going to thread it back in and hide it and snip it off. But for right now, I just want to make sure that I have my circle ready to go. Now we're ready for round 2. And round 2 is this round right here. And what we're going to be doing is making petals all the way around. So in order to do that, our first step is we're going to pick up 4 B beads. And I'm going to use these solid color B beads. You can feel free, again, to use any of the beads that are provided, but I'm going to be consistent with B's and A's. So I'm going to pick up 4 B beads and then 7 A beads. 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to move those beads to my circle, and just want to get these beads out of my way so I don't catch my thread on them. And now what I'm going to do, I have 7 A beads here. I'm going to skip the last one that I added right here, and I'm going to pass my needle back up through just the second to last bead. So let me get my fingers out of the way for a second. So I have skipped that last bead that I added, and I'm passing back up through that second to last bead. And you don't have to worry about everything being nice and tight until you get to this spot right here. And you can see I kind of held with my nail and my finger to get that nice and tight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up 5 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A beads, and 4 B beads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what I need to do is I need to work into this in the circle part here. And I need to pass back through the bead that my thread is exiting. So back through this bead right here, that this chain of beads here is exiting. So I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to go back through that bead. And it's a little tight to get in there at first. And that's why we're not tying a knot in this circle, because we do need a little bit of space to be able to finagle our needle in there. So I'm going to go back through this one bead, but I also need to pass through 3 more beads. 1, 2, 3. So my needle is coming out of this bead here, but I'm also going to pass through 1, 2, 3 beads. And I'm going to take that all in one pass because it's a little bit easier for me to do it all in one pass. If it's easier for you to do it separately, that's okay too, but you can see where my needle is coming out. I'm just going to pull that, pull everything nice and tight, and now I have my first petal done. Now we're ready to make the second petal. So we're going to pick up 4 more B beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can put my piece down and move those beads up against the circle. And just like we did for the first petal, I'm going to skip that last bead added and I'm going to go back through the second to last bead added. I'm going to pull everything tight. Okay, now our first petal we made, and we made it separate. There was no join that we needed to worry about because that was our first petal. But with this petal and every subsequent petal, we need to join it to the petal that came before it. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to pick up, this time, 5 A beads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A beads. And we're going to join those A beads to this previous petal by sewing up through the first B bead on that petal. So you can see where the A beads end, and that very first B bead, that is what we are going to sew up through to join that petal. So let me get my finger out of the way. You can see now I've got my 5 A beads here and I'm joined to that petal. So now what I need to do is finish that petal, and to do that I'm going to pick up 3 B beads. 1, 2, 3. And now I need to join that petal to the circle that we made in step 1. And to do that, we're going to pass through that A bead, that bead on the circle that we started the petal, and just like we did in that previous step, 1, 2, 3 more beads. So it's easier for me to pick it up. I'm going to use my needle to sew through that bead, and then I'm going to try to pull to pick or to sew through those 3 next beads all in one pass. So did I get them? Yes, I've got that, my needle coming through that 1 bead there, and then 1, 2, 3 beads. I'm going to pull everything taut. You want to keep a pretty tight tension on this project, but not so tight that your beadwork starts to get out of shape. Once you put your netting around the form, around this beautiful crystal, everything is going to come into shape really nicely, but you don't want big gaps in between all of your beads, but you also don't want it so tight that it doesn't have any room to move. So let's show one more petal and then we will pause for a moment. I'll finish up all the petals and then I'll show you how to do the last one. So let's do one more petal. Again, to do that, we're going to be repeating steps 4 through 7. So we're going to pick up 4 B beads. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 7 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to pull those down toward the circle. I'm going to skip that last bead that I added and pass back up through the second to last bead. Pull everything nice and snug. And now it's time, once again, to attach the petal that I'm working on to the preceding petal. So pick up 5 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go through again that 1, 2, 3, 4th B bead on the preceding petal. Sometimes you have to kind of wedge your needle in there, and that's also why you don't want this to be too tight, because if your beadwork is too tight, you won't be able to get your needle in between the beads that you need to get it in between. Now 3 B beads. 1, 2, 3. And I need to look to see, okay, where is my needle coming out? It's this bead right here. So I want to go through this bead and 1, 2, 3 more beads. So pass through 1 bead and 1, 2, 3 beads. Pull that out and get everything nice and tightened up. Sometimes your thread likes to scrunch up on each other, and that is okay. Just kind of have to move it around so that it does what you need it to do. So we've done 3 petals. We're going to repeat steps 4 to 7 until there are 7 petals. The 8th petal is a little bit different, so I'm going to go ahead and finish those 7 petals, and then we'll show you how to do the 8th petal, and we'll be able to move on to round 3. So now I have 7 petals, and I'm ready to add my 8th and final petal here. Let's just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the stopper bead. And to do that, I'm just going to insert my needle into it and just gently pull that stopper bead off, just to get it out of the way. After I'm done that 8th petal, I'm going to go ahead and weave that tail in and snip it off. But for right now, I'm just going to hold it out of the way with my finger. So for the last step, or for the last petal, I should say, I'm going to add 3 B beads. 1, 2, 3. And then see the direction that your thread is facing here? That's the petal that I'm going to go to join first. So I have on this side 1, 2, 3, 4 beads, and I'm going to go through that 4th bead toward myself, or away from the circle. So I'm going to pick it up to make it a little bit easier for myself, and I'm going to just thread down through that petal. And you can see it's now being joined over here to this petal on this side. So now I'm going to go ahead and pick up those 7 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to continue with the pattern of skipping that last bead, going back through that second to last bead, pulling everything nice and tight. Now, just like before, I'm going to pick up 5 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I need to join the petal here on the right. So just like I did before, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 beads down. That first B bead, I'm going to pick it up, heading back toward the circle. I'm going to pull everything nice and snug. And I have 1 step left on this petal, and that's to pick up 3 more B beads. 2, 3. And now I have to see where my thread is coming from, or where that petal started. And it's this bead right here. You can see this thread of 1, 2, 3 B beads, and it's coming out of this bead right here, and that's where I need to go this way through the bead to finish that last petal and finish this round. So now I have finished my round. I have 8 petals, but I need to reposition my thread to start the next round, round 3. And to do that, I'm going to thread my thread through, or I'm going to sew through these 3 beads here. Let's get my thread out of the way here so we can see what I'm doing. These 3 beads, this one here, these beads here, and I'm going to come out this tip right here, because that's what I'm going to use to start my next round. So it's really a very long step up. If you remember that term from other classes that we've done, I'm stepping up, but this step up is all the way through all of those B beads, and then down through the next series of A beads. And I like to try to take this in one pass, but I don't always make it in one pass, and that's okay too. And if your thread starts getting a little tangly here, just take it slow and steady. I'm going to go through this next bead here, and then I'm going to come out the bead that's on the tip. And now I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to put a needle onto my tail, and I'm going to thread it around, and I'm going to tie a couple of knots and snip it off. With our last round, I finished up the A beads, so I need to put some A beads back down. And now we're going to use our first flower color. So on the example here, we used the blue color for the B beads, and we've done up to right here. So you can see the ring, you can see where the B beads are, you can see where the A beads are here. And so now this is the round that we're doing. The round actually goes to here and back. But we're going to be working on our first series of flowers. You want to choose what color you want for your first series of flowers, and those are going to be your C beads. So I'm going to go ahead and pour out my C beads. And then the center of our flowers, these little centers of these daisy flowers here, are going to be our D beads. And that is the yellow beads here. And remember, these letters are just for designating what color our beads are. You could use a little piece of paper here. You could use a Post-it. You could use it by memory. Sometimes I do it just in order because I like to switch them up a little bit. But this is a really good way to remember where you are in your pattern by using either letter beads or, like I said, a little Post-it note. So first things first, I'm going to pick up 4 seed beads. And these next 2 steps are making our first flower here on our pendant. So there are a couple of different colors in here. There's a darker color and a lighter color. And I think I'm going to choose the darker color just because it will be a little bit easier for us to see here together today. So I'm picking up 4 C beads and then 1 D bead. And again, in these D beads, I've got some silver lined and then some opaque. I'm going to pick up the opaque, but again, please feel free to use whatever beads are calling to you. So I have my 4 C beads, my 1 D bead, and I'm going to move those down against the point here. And now, you know from taking classes with me before, I always mention that there's one part of the class that's the hard part. And luckily, everything here is pretty repetitive. There isn't really that much that's going to trip you up. But if I were to pick a part of this project that is the hard part, this is it. So just if you pay attention and do a couple of practice runs, you'll get it, no problem. So I have 4 beads here, my C beads, and then my D bead. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to skip these 3 C beads. I'm going to do that a lot during this demonstration. And I'm going to go back through the first one that I added. Okay, we're going to do this a couple of times so you'll be able to see what I'm doing. And I want to make sure that that's pretty tight up against that point. Now this is going to want to kind of move around on you, and that's okay. We're just going to push it where we need it to be. And sometimes I even like to move the piece around in my hand, because what I need to do, what I need to accomplish is I need to see if I have my circle here and my thread is coming out of this bead. I'm going to skip that yellow bead and I'm going to go back up through technically the first bead that I added. So I'm going to pull that together, and that is what is going to give me that nice circle, that nice little daisy shape where I have 6 beads around and 1 in the middle. So like I said, we're going to do that at least 1 or maybe 2 more times so we'll be able to get it. But let's go ahead and finish up with our with this part of the pattern. So now I'm on step 3 of round 3, and I'm going to pick up 7 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And just like we've been doing for the 8 petals before it, I'm going to move those beads to the bottom, and I'm going to skip that 1 bead, and I'm going to pass back up through that second to last bead added. So the same thing we did at the end of the petals on that first round, we're doing that same motion here. But this is where it gets a little bit different, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the next part of this point here, but we're also going to be building in the next daisy. So in order to do that, we're going to pick up 5 A beads, just like we did before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A beads. And now we're going to pick up 4 C beads, 4 C seed beads, right? Say that 10 times fast or even 3 times fast. That's 4 C beads and 1 D bead. And what I'm going to do is push them to the end, right? So that we're always working, we're not working up toward the needle, we're working down toward our beadwork, and we're making our next daisy. So once again, I'm skipping all of these beads and I'm going up through that first purple bead that I added. I'm going to speak about them in colors now, because now we know, we've done this for a little while now, we know that we're using different letters for our beads. So I'm going to pick up 2 more purple beads, and I'm going to skip that yellow bead and go back through that first purple bead that I added. Now, I have 2 daisies and a point. My next step is to add this daisy to the flower that I already have going. And I have to think, okay, which way is my beadwork naturally going? I think my beadwork is naturally going this way. Whichever way your beadwork is naturally going, you're going to attach it to the flower by going back through the point bead toward the preceding flower. Okay, so that's a lot of words. It's a bit confusing. So let's break that down. So let's look at where our thread is coming out of, right? I have my daisy here, and my thread is coming out of my daisy on this side, kind of facing that way. So it naturally wants to go through this bead facing this way. And that is how you join that daisy. After you go through the bead that's on the flower, I'm now going to sew through on the body of my daisy 1, 2, 3, 4 beads, okay? I generally can't take that in one pass, but what I want to do is I want to go through 1, 2, 3, 4 beads, so I'm coming out of this bead. So I'm going to pick up my big beadwork. I'm going to sew through 2 beads here. And can I get 2 beads here? I might only be able to get 1, and that's okay. So I'm going to do that 1 bead there and 1 more bead. And so now I have joined, I have 1 daisy here, I have my next point and a daisy there. So now I am ready to just continue repeating steps 3 to 6 until I have 8 flowers. The first thing I'm going to do, good bead practice, I'm going to put these bee beads away. I'm going to take my little baggie back out and my bead tray, and I oftentimes will put the letter that I'm using back right in the container so that I remember for next time. But I'm going to put these beads away because I don't want to accidentally pick them up when I'm doing my bead work. I'm on purple now, so I don't even want to have a chance of putting a blue bead in there. All right, so I've done my 2 flowers, and I'm now going to repeat steps 3 to 6 until I have 8 flowers. So step 3 is picking up 7 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to move them down, and I'm going to create my point by skipping 1 bead and going back up that second to last bead. And you want to be careful that you don't pull all of your bead mat and your materials out of the way. Once you have that nice and tight, we're going to do that next step where that's the step that we're going to pick up 5 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 C beads, or the purple beads that we're using over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1 D bead. I'm going to move those down to my beadwork, and now I'm going to make the next flower by going up through that first purple bead that I added, tightening everything up, picking up my beadwork, picking up 2 more purple beads. And you can see this flower often wants to twist around. You just kind of have to find where the right spot is to be able to skip that yellow bead and go back up through that purple bead to be able to complete the circle. And now I have my next flower made, and I need to join it to my flower in the middle. This is, between you and me, a step that sometimes trips me up. Sometimes I get so excited that I finish the flower that I just move on without actually attaching it to the center piece. It's no big deal. If you find that you've done that, you can just go ahead and take your needle off and back your thread back out and then start over again and attach it. It's just one of those things I've noticed that sometimes I get really excited about finishing the flower. I want to move on, but you always have to make sure that you attach it here and then go back through, and you want to make sure that you are doing the right thread path here. Did you see how I twisted that around? So it was on this side, didn't look right. Because what you want is you want your thread to be coming out of this flower, to go through the point, and then continue down through the 4 beads. So I'm going to take 2 beads in this first pass, and then let's see if I can get 2 beads. Well, so I'm just going to do 1 bead and then 1 bead, but regardless of how you get there, you want to make sure that you're sewing through 4 beads on that daisy. So I've got 1, 2, 3 daisies. I have 5 more to go until I have 8 total. And then just like with the petals here, once you get to 8, it's a little bit of a different technique to attach the 2 last daisies together. But I'm going to go ahead and do 5 more daisies, and I will meet you back around and we'll talk about finishing up round 3. So I have added 8 flowers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I've done that first step of step 8, which is to pick up 7 A beads, skip that last bead and go back up through that second to last bead, just like we've been doing for the whole thing. But this time, I'm not making another flower. I already have my flower here. I need to join this row together. So I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A beads. And then I need to join this point to this flower. So to do that, I am going to sew through the bottom right bead. So my thread is coming out of this bead here. I'm going to sew through this bead, and I'm going to do it in this direction to match the other beads or the other points that I have. So I have this flower. I have 1, 2, 3 beads on this side. My thread is coming down here. I'm going to go up this bead, and then I'm going to sew all the way around my flower again, just to reinforce that join. Hopefully my beads will cooperate. And by pulling that together, now I have made my last point, and everything is joined for this round. Now at this point, the beadwork is going to start cupping in, and we want it to. The nature of this design is such that it's going to go around the crystal. So we need it to start bending in on itself. It does tend to make beading a little fiddly going forward, and that's okay. It's just the way that the pattern is, and you just have to know that that is how it's going to go. And don't expect it to be lying flat anymore. It's not going to lie flat like it did on that first round. It's going to start cupping in on each other. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue around. And once again, I need my thread to be coming out of the point here to start the next round. So I'm going to go down all of these beads. And this is really, for all intents and purposes, the step up. It just happens to be a long step up through a lot of beads. Now, one thing that I like to do as I'm going along, and remember that I said in the beginning that we're working this pattern from the bottom up. So it is possible, again, just a little secret aside, to do it this way with the point here at the top. But I found as I was playing around with it, the way that I have the counts and everything worked out, I liked the way it looked better starting from the bottom up, and it's just easier to bead this way. But at this point, I do like to just kind of put it around my crystal just to make sure that everything's looking right, that I have all the counts correct. And it also helps to just give the beadwork a little bit of shape to it. Okay, so I'm going to put my crystal back aside, and now for rounds 4 and 5, let's go back to our example here. So we've just done this first round with the pink flowers. I'm sorry, not this first round, the third round, round 3 with the pink flowers. And now I'm going to do 2 more rounds, round 4 and round 5, with either the same or different color flowers. That is beader's choice. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this row right here, but the way that you start and finish rounds 4 and 5 is exactly the same as round 3. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here, and I'm going to finish this round, and then we're going to join back around to doing our final round together. Round 4 starts exactly like round 3. I'm going to pick up 4 C beads, but this time I'm going to change my C beads. On this round, my C beads were the dark purple. This next round, I'm going to do my C beads as the light purple. Again, feel free to use any color beads that you want to, but I'm going to pick up 4 of those light purple beads this time and 1 D. I'm going to move those beads down to my beadwork. I'm going to skip or skip over the D bead and then 1, 2, 3 of the sea beads, the new color of sea beads. Go up through that first one that I added, tighten everything up, pick up 2 more of the new lighter purple sea beads. And then again, I need to kind of switch this around so that I can get access to that first bead, that first purple bead, skipping over the yellow bead so that I can join, I can finish my circle. And it looks like, let's see here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I did something wrong here. There are only 5 beads, and obviously from all of these other flowers that we're doing, I need 6. So super easy. I'm just going to take my needle off of my thread and I'm going to pull this apart. Just kind of finagle it apart, see where my thread path is going. And here is my challenge. I only added 1 extra bead here. So sometimes that happens, right? The best thing to do, especially in a project like this, is just take your needle off of your thread, come back here, flatten your needle or flatten your wildfire if you're using a hard needle like I am, pinch it in your fingers, and then just push the head of that needle over the wildfire. So don't be afraid to take your needle off of your thread. It is a lot easier, trust me, having done it very many times, than trying to recreate your thread path. You'll just get everything all jumbled up and end up having to cut things out. So skipping that yellow bead, going back through the purple bead, tighten everything up, and lo and behold, here we are. I've got my flower with 6 petals around it. So let's see. Step number 3. Just like we did on round 3, I'm going to pick up 7 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Bring them down against the beadwork. Skip 1 bead. Go back through the second to last bead added. I'm going to pick up 5 A beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 C beads. This time I'm using the light purple. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 D bead. I'm still using the opaque D bead, but you can certainly feel free to use any beads that you want. Skipping that D bead, 1, 2, 3 C beads, back up through that C bead. Pull everything nice and tight. Pick up 2 more C beads. Move my daisy around so that I am in a spot where I'm skipping the yellow bead and going up through the first C bead added to make that daisy. And then don't forget, I want to come over here and attach it to the point by going back toward that first flower. The last step here is through 1, 2, 3, 4 of my C beads. I'm going to take it through 2, tighten that up, and sometimes they get a little fiddly, but that's okay. You just have to move your beadwork around a little bit. You saw I kind of angled it in a different way in order to be able to get my needle through. And now I have 1, 2 of those beads, or I'm sorry, 1, 2 of those flowers. So the next step on round 4 is to continue around until you have 8 flowers. Do the join the exact same way that we showed joining the last flower in round 3. Then we're going to switch colors again for another round. That's going to be round 5. And after we've done 8 petals of round 4 and joined, and 8 petals of round 5 and join, 8 flowers of round 5 and join, we're going to meet back around to close everything up and capture our crystal in round 6. So now what I've done is all of the rounds up to the last round, round 6. So I've done round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5, and now I'm ready for round 6. You can see the beads have switched from my original demonstration. I tried a couple different colors and I actually doubled the colors up here. But now, after all of the hard work, we are ready to put the netting around the crystal. So, like I had mentioned, we are working from the bottom to the top. So I'm going to put the bottom of the crystal in here, and of course, the beadwork can get a little fiddly by the time we're all finished. But now the crystal is in the beadwork, and it's a little slippery, so you just kind of want to hold it in place as you're doing this last step. And all the last step is sewing through the points on the last row. So we're not adding any beads in this round. All we're doing is sewing through those point beads. So after you've did your last round, you should be exiting from one of the point beads and just pick up each of the point beads. And I like to do them a couple at a time, but if it's easier for you to do them individually, that works also. So I've got my point beads and I'm just going around the circle and grabbing them as I can. And when I tighten everything up, I want to make sure that when they tighten right around the top of that crystal. You don't want anything to be off kilter. You want that circle to be right around the top of the crystal. I need to go back through the first bead again, and then I'm going to reinforce by going around all of those beads one last time. So now I've gone around my circle twice, but I still have my tail here. So all I need to do is sew back down a couple of these beads, tie a couple of half hitch knots to secure my thread, and then I will be ready to make the hanger. So I'm just going to come down some of these beads here and a couple more of the beads here. And I find that right before my flowers is a really good place to tie just a little overhand half hitch knot. And I could go around my flower or maybe come back up this way. I think maybe I'll go down around my flower. If I can, there we go, through those two beads, down through this bead, tie another half hitch knot. Just going underneath the thread and pulling it nice and tight. And then when I have my knots made, I can go ahead and take either a cord cutter or a scissors and just trim and seal that end. The very last thing that we need to do is to make a hook to hang our pendant. I'm going to use about a 6-inch piece of 18 gauge artistic wire. And I'll put that wire in the top hole of the pendant. And I want to make sure that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 flowers on one side and 1, 2, 3, 4 flowers on the other side, just so that it's even in between the beadwork. And to make a hook for the pendant, we're going to do a wrapped briolette, or a briolette wrap, depending on how you'd like to call it. And I've just put my wire in, and I'm going to use my fingers, my very best tool, to bend this wire up and over so I have a triangle shape. I have one wire going out at about a 45-degree angle one way, and one wire at about a 45-degree angle the other way. I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and bend one of those wires. make sure that it's nice and tight so it doesn't move around too much. I'm going to bend one wire down and one wire up. So now those wires are forming about a 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to do a wire wrap. I'm going to wrap this bottom wire around the top wire. And so to do that, I'm just going to grab it with my chain nose pliers right underneath where those wires meet. And I like to use a flat nose or another chain nose pliers to push and pull that wire around. So I get a really nice tight wrap. You can use your fingers to do this part, but I find that using a pliers really makes for a nice tight wrap. I'm going to go around them 2 times and then snip off my excess as close as I can get it. And then I'm going to just use my pliers to tuck that end in. And the next step is to make this loop here. And to do that, I am going to use my stepped bail making pliers. But first, I'm going to use my chain nose pliers and bend that wire back, again at about a 45-degree angle. I'm going to use the second largest barrel of my six stepped bail making pliers. And here again, I'm using my best tool, my finger, to push that wire around the barrel of those pliers around to about a 45 or so degree angle. It's a little bit further than 45-degree angle here. I am going to snip this off now, leaving about an inch length here. And then I'm going to come back in with my bail making pliers and use the smallest jaw this time to just make a nice little loop here on the end. And I want to go ahead and make sure that my hook is a really nice shape. And then if you want, you can use a large hole bead. There are so many wonderful large hole Jesse James beads, just to put that on for an extra little bit of bling and to hide that wrap. You certainly don't have to use that bead, or you can put a bead in and then do a simple wrapped loop on the top as well. Lots of different ways to finish this off. Again, I'm Meredith Roddy from Beadalon and Artistic Wire. Thank you so much for joining me for the You Are My Sunshine Crystal Suncatcher class. Until next time, happy beading!